we're busy, you can get up now and relax. Why don't you do that now? And I hope this process makes sense to everybody. Is that okay? All right, up you go to the back of the room, get your seats. Meanwhile, I want to swear in those who have not been sworn in. Give me 1 second, please. I also want to introduce my colleague, Mr. Guy Mazza, for those of you who haven't met him. All right, everybody listen up, because I'm on the record now. All right, can I get everybody's attention, please? For those of you who have not been sworn, would you kindly stand? Raise your right hand. Mr. Lopez has Mr. Santiago returned? Mr. Santiago, have I sworn you, sir? Welcome, Mr. Lopez. Welcome, Mr. Santiago. Raise your right hand, please. My name is Scott Hempling, by the way. Do you affirm that the testimony that you will provide today is true, correct, and based on your own and personal knowledge, and that to the best of your understanding, none of the information you will provide today is misleading or untruthful? Answer affirmatively. All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. You've been sworn, and that counts for the rest of the hearing. Once again, we'll just rotate people in and out of the panel with the least amount of difficulty so that we all can relax. Mr. Mazza, welcome back, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hempling. Good to be back. And greetings, Mr. Lopez and Mr. Santiago. Thank you. I will be addressing questions to the three companies, PREPA, Luma, and Henetta.
Who is here for PREPA to answer questions about advertising and marketing? Is anybody? Yeah, and I forgot your name, sir. Mr. Adrove, I'm so sorry, and the CEO,
Thank you.
Ms. Zapato, welcome back. And you've both been sworn, correct? Okay, thank you. Welcome all.
I will endeavor to combine questions where possible. I think that's the most efficient use of time, and we'll see where that goes. So I'd like to start with Mr. Lopez for Luma. Does Luma fund all of its advertising and marketing activities as pass-through expenses?
No. No problem. No, we do not.
And where are other advertising and marketing expenses funded?
They are non-ratepayer funds, private funds from the parent companies.
And how does Luma determine which expenditures are funded through ratepayer funds versus other funds?
But great question. From our perspective, we look at it as making the distinction between what directly impacts, a customer in terms of service, customer experience, outages, things of that nature, versus what we would consider to be something reputational in nature that is about, Luma as a good corporate citizen or as, advancing, overall progress and projects as part of the grid transformation. But we make the distinction between what is individually impacting customer service and information's customers need as part of the overall experience versus, other type of advertising.
Is there a bright line between those two, or is it sometimes difficult to make that distinction?
No, we have a protocol that we have in place, and we have discussions about it, and it creates a pretty easy line for us to make the distinction.
And it's under your authority that that's formed?
Yes.
And Henetta, I'd like to ask you the same questions. Does Henetta fund all of its advertising and marketing activities as a pass-through expense?
No. It is part of the budget that we are authorized to operate.
I'm sorry, could you expand on that?
We have a budget in the Corporate Affairs Department, and it's not passed through.
So am I correct in understanding some is from the budget and some is not from the budget? Is that what you said? I'm having trouble understanding your answer. I'm sorry.
No, basically, it's all on my budget.
It is all from your budget.
Yeah.
So it's all from ratepayer funds.
Yes.
I just want to be very sure that we understand, because your answer is different from the answer that the other gentleman gave. Let's make sure that you're giving the answer that you mean to answer. He made a distinction between the types of costs that he feels really belong to be funded by the private treasury of the company versus ratepayers. He made that distinction. Your answer, I understood not to make that distinction. Is that correct, sir?
I don't have clearly the way they came to my budget, but from my perspective, it's part of a operational budget that I have for the Corporate Affairs Department.
All right, and by that operational budget, you're referring to a budget that's then recovered from customers.
This is something that I need to clarify, because from my perspective, it's part of the operational budget that we had annually approved.
Okay, we're getting the same answer 3 times. I want to make sure you understand what the concern is here, because it's a concern of the 5 commissioners sitting behind me, which is a premise that if you're doing advertising and marketing that is really profit, benefit, and sustenance of the companies itself and its owners, that's not a proper ratepayer concept. That goes back probably 50, 60, 70, 80 years in regulatory theory and law. And if you're not making that distinction, we need to be very clear that that's the case so we can address it. I'm concerned that you're not clear on the distinction yourself. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, well, what are we going to do to get clear about this? Because the gentleman before you seem to be making distinction quite clearly. Is that right, sir?
Definitely. I could check with the finance department just to make sure about this answer.
Well, what is it that you want to make sure of? What's your understanding right now, that no distinction is made between advertising that's really to benefit the ratepayers and advertising that's to benefit the shareholders? Is that your understanding, that there's no distinction, sir?
Mostly the advertising that we do, which is a very low budget, is under the OMA. It's part of the OMA agreement. It's included since the very beginning, and it's a very limited budget.
Okay. Well, is your understanding of the OMA that it precludes you from treating as a pass-through expenditure advertising that is really for the benefit of the corporate parent?
This is something that I'm not sure.
Sorry?
This is something that I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, it's real important that you get sure of that pretty soon before this panel ends. Okay, sir?
Yeah.
Okay.
And could you explain, I know you're in a different situation from these other 2 gentlemen. Would you explain where the funding for your advertising comes from?
Good morning, Mary Zapata from PREPA.
Good morning.
PREPA has a press office that is composed of 2 employees, and department inside a department that are those 2 employees are in charge of monitoring the media in Puerto Rico, and those 2 employees are also responsible for coordinating any press release that PREPA needs to do to share public information with the people in Puerto Rico. Regularly, PREPA what does is to share our information through the social media like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And normally we don't do advertising. We only share public information, any governmental requirement to share information with the customers, and to share any information regarding any public campaign sponsored by the government of Puerto Rico.
Thank you. So the sum total of that is that all of you, I understand you're not characterizing it as advertising. All of your outreach of any type is ratepayer funded.
Yes, the 2 employees that works in that office, their salaries are paid with a PREPA's budget.
Thank you. Luma, what amounts are in the revenue requirement to fund social response? I think, well, I'm not going to presuppose your answer. What amounts are in the revenue requirement to fund social responsibility and community engagement?
Yeah, that's mostly related to a staffing overall. We have people that do work from a community relations perspective. For example, with the AMI, the smart meter program, we had individuals that went into public housing, talked to the residents, informed them about the project, what's being done. So it mostly falls under that category. If we'll do an event that might require printing and things of that nature, then that will kind of fall under the kind of miscellaneous expenses and potentially like transportation and per diem overall. But the bulk of it would be on the staffing side.
In your testimony, you allude in several places to community events. In some cases, you say they're volunteer events, and so you characterize them differently. Is there any staffing cost relating to the events that you characterized as non-directly customer-related events that would be funded from other than the pass-through expenses? Are there any those expenses that are funded from other than pass-through expenses? Are there any staffing costs involved in those?
Yeah, I mean, I think there'll be, some, if I understand your question correctly, right, for some of these kind of non-ratepayer funds, if we have people on staff and there is, for example, we're working on a story to tell about the company, there'll be, some limited time on that perspective, but any funds that are utilized to actually promote, advertise, amplify messages, things of that nature, that gets done specifically with the non-ratepayer funds.
Just to clarify, though, is there any ratepayer fund relating to the staffing that would make that happen that would be passed through to ratepayers?
Yeah, I mean, it would be part of the overall staffing that we do. We don't make a distinction because a lot of times we may have a project that may have like multiple purposes, right? Like we may interview employees out in the field doing a work to upgrade the system. And there's a part of that that is about educating, customers. And then there's another part of that could be related to overall kind of reputational advertising or a project.
Right. So what do? Do they keep timesheets so you can allocate a portion of their salary? That's what he's asking. Or does all of their salary go into the rates, even if some of their time goes into the corporate matters?
Yeah, we don't break out the costs, from a salary perspective, because in many instances the time is minimal. It's not a huge kind of cost overall.
All right, so here's how I understand your answer. There are situations in which employee time is paid for by ratepayers, but is used for corporate affairs, but it's so small, you're saying, that you don't bother allocating the time.
Yeah, we haven't broken it out that way to this point.
All right, well, yeah, I'm just telling you that from, my limited role here, that's a problem, even though it's de minimis. What did the Supreme Court say once? Even a little unlawfulness is not permitted.
Understood.
Is it infeasible to have time practice when there's multiple roles within a monopoly utility to separate what gets done for the for-profit purpose and what gets done for the ratepayer purpose? You understand that?
Yeah, no, I understand.
Is there some kind of undue burden, to use a word that gets used around here a lot, to having employees keep timesheets?
No, not necessarily.
Right, but right now the problem for the commissioners, I understand it, is that your proposed revenue requirement anticipates that customers will be paying something for employee time that will be used for corporate affairs, unless we say something that requires you to keep timesheets. Is that right?
Correct, and we're happy to look at that. It wouldn't be a problem for us to take that additional step.
All right, thank you. Is that the same for Mr. Pineda? That you have employees that are spending some of their time on corporate profit affairs matters when their costs are included in the revenue requirement for customers, sir?
Basically, my department is 3-person, including me. And most of our corporate affairs functions are destined to corporate communications, community engagement, and government affairs.
Well, I know that, but to answer my question, some of their time goes into doing things that benefit Hineta, profits, rather than the customers. Some of their time.
No, mostly is for the customers.
You say mostly, but is there some of their time or not?
It's mostly based on customers because not necessarily on profit.
Okay. I mean, do you forbid them from participating in activities on salary that are going to advance the profit cause of the corporation? Do you prohibit that?
Basically, what we do is under the OMA, and under the OMA, the functions that are allowed is community relations, corporate communications, and government relations.
Okay,
Mostly.
but I thought you told me before that some of the things you do and charge ratepayers for fall into what the distinction that Mr. Lopez drew. Didn't you tell me that before and that you had to look into it?
Can you repeat that question, sir?
My question is, earlier this morning, I made a distinction with you between communications activities that are for the benefit of the ratepayers versus communication activities that are for the benefit of the corporation. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Discussion.
Most of, I will say all the activities we do are on the benefits of keeping informed the ratepayers.
Okay, that's your answer. Okay, whereas Mr. Lopez is saying quite openly that some of the activities are corporate activities which don't necessarily benefit ratepayers but benefit the corporation, right, Mr. Lopez?
I would say overall it is a situation where while it is overall, helps the corporation, it does help instill confidence, right, with customers to understand a lot of the noise that's been around the work that's being done with the electric system. So, it does have an indirect, benefit overall, but I understand the point that you're trying to make.
Well, as I think Mr. Maz is going to get to, when you run an ad that encourages the Energy Bureau to approve a rate increase, that's not for the ratepayers, that's for the corporation, correct?
Correct.
And how do you pay for that?
That gets paid non-ratepayer funds.
All right, well, I'll leave that to Mr. Mazza. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. And PREPA, it all comes from the same pot, so I don't think.
Excuse me, before we continue, I want to make a brief statement. This is Mirelis Valle on behalf of PREPA. My panelists informed me that they prefer to testify in Spanish, and I'm informed that to the organizers. So I just want to make sure that that's. I just want to say that for the record, and if something needs to be, if the hearing examiner needs a hearing aid or anything, that's
All right.
arranged.
And I know that I'm not the only one who will need the translation. So give us a second to. Are you asking for us to pause so we get everything up to speed?
Yes, I just want to because I know that they prefer,
Okay.
and that's the best.
I apologize. I did not know that, and I should have asked about it. So let me address that, and I'll be right back.
Thank you.
First of all, yes, ma'am.
And I wanted to add that the question they understand the question in English, right? So it's fine if when the questions are posed in English, they do not need to be translated. It's just that they prefer to answer in Spanish. I just wanted to add that.
So I want to remind the panelists of something that's very important. Because there is a pause as the translators finish the translation of either the question or the answer, it's necessary for both the questioner who's going to ask the next question to wait. And it's important for the person who's answering a question to wait. because otherwise the two things are happening at once and becomes impossible. And what I found is the only way for this to get handled is for people to look at me, and I will, like an orchestra conductor, I'm just going to have to tell you when to start and when to stop. And I found that that is the only way for this to work. Is everybody clear on that? No matter how eager you are to answer the question, you have to wait till I signal. And I know you're going to get tired of this, and I'm not trying to dictate what people do, but that's the only way for it to work. Everybody with me? All right, 1 second, please. You got it on? You got it on? Okay. Apologies.
However, you've already indicated that all of your outreach comes from ratepayer funds. So that answers that question for me. Thank you. I'm sorry. Need me to keep this on? Luma. With regard to the voice of the customer, and I know we've discussed this already, but are you familiar with what amounts are in the revenue requirement to fund the voice of the customer?
I'm aware of the voice of the customer. I'm not aware of the funding related to it.
And are you aware of the information that it provides?
Yes, from a communication standpoint, yes.
Okay. And how does Luma use that information to develop content that's important to the customer?
Yeah, it really helps us hone in on the types of things that customers find, relevant, that are important to them. Obviously, one of the big things is as there's been either service interruptions or situations where we're going to be making upgrades to certain parts of the grid transmission lines, things of that nature. People want to be informed of when that work is going to happen, when it's going to potentially impact their community. So those type of things have been important for us to get information on.
And how is that content communicated to customers?
We use a number of different platforms. Obviously, the website is a critical platform. In many instances, for information about service, we use the Miluma app. Is integrated within it. We'll post in social media. We'll have earned media efforts and do radio interviews and print interviews and things of that nature. So we'll try to use as many levers as we can within the kind of earned space to get the message out through communication with employees, with stakeholders, all different types.
Is there a different cost associated with the different media or different avenues by which you disseminate this information?
There are, and it really kind of depends on the channel itself. And again, we use the same criteria in making a distinction of what is ratepayer based that makes, that is directly related to informing customers about service experience versus, other types of or forms of advertising that we may do.
And in your testimony, you indicated, and I believe this falls into mentioned before, but in Luma's investment in the communities in which the employees live and work, would you characterize that as a ratepayer justified expense or otherwise?
Yeah, no, it depends on the program itself overall, but it is, consistent, right, with our way of giving back to the community, being visible in the community, helping inform communities. So there's usually definitely a tie-in that impacts, from a customer perspective.
So I just want to be sure I understand. You're saying that Luma's investment in the communities, as you've characterized in your testimony, would be ratepayer funded?
Yes. Yeah.
Could you explain the direct relationship that has to the customer, as you indicated earlier, would be your criteria?
Sure. No, absolutely. It's basically, obviously another form of, creating awareness, educating, They see us in the community. It creates, the exchange and the back and forth. People have a lot of questions about what is happening in their communities, what type of improvements are being made, upgrades, things of that nature. So it is another form of engaging with the community. And obviously, it's in some instances, right? If it is an employee program, it also helps the employees to be visible out there. So there is a distinction there that it does have an impact from a customer perspective. There may be programs that we do that we may have a component that may be funded with non-ratepayer funds as part of it, but in the basis as it relates to community events, it's an extension of kind of that informing awareness, visibility in the community, particularly because there has been, so much said and so much talked about the energy transformation. So anything that we can do to interact with the community is helpful in the overall process.
I believe in one of your ROIs, you responded that one of the events that you participated in was cleaning up plastic waste in the ocean.
Mhm.
Where did the funding for that come from?
I have to check on that, the specific funds for it, but I believe those are kind of employee initiatives that are all kind of funded through the regular budget.
Okay. You state that stakeholder engagement group strengthens LUMA's relationship, collaboration, and partnership with external shareholders. What is the cost to ratepayers of that type of activity?
From that standpoint, it's mostly staffing, and I think in terms of the shareholders is not your traditional kind of company shareholders, as it is people that have a stake in the energy transformation, customers, communities, things of that nature.
Do you have any quantification of the cost that would go into stakeholder outreach?
It would be staff time on a regular basis, because it is part of what we do continuously, because we do get a lot of questions, a lot of outreach. So in some cases or in most cases, we are reacting a lot to those questions. And then in many cases, we're forward looking, thinking through and saying, okay, these are topics that many of our stakeholders and people in communities care about. So we should arrange something so we can either bring them in or go somewhere so that we can, talk to as many people as possible about, any given subject.
And what is the cost to consumers of your LUMA in your community program?
Right. So there is some staffing time, obviously, to organize and arrange the event, but we do use non-ratepayer funds as part of the overall awards that are given, at the local level. But there is the time and effort of a few staff members to help organize the overall campaign and event.
All right. This next question is for Mr. Santiago. Shall we? In your testimony, you relate that you supervise Genera's budget relating to external communications of memberships in trade and industry organizations, such as the Puerto Rico Chamber of Commerce, Manufacturers Association, Retailers Association, and others. In keeping with your answer before, so all those activities would be ratepayer funded, is that correct?
That's correct. And just for the record, all of my budget was, wanted to clarify just for the record that all of my budget comes from the ratepayers fund. The second one is that we don't do massive advertising. We do mostly social media because our budget is mostly used on the most efficient kind of expenses that we are under the available budget.
So thank you for finding that out, Mr. Santiago. I want to make sure I understand your answer. So there are no situations where your communications department uses corporate funds to do any of the work? No situation.
Mostly is rate payers.
Okay.
I mean, totally, fully rate payers.
Okay.
And just a little clarification. My second name is Bias. Last name, Santiago. Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, I like my mom's number, but name.
I'd like to address this to PREPA. And I understand that all of your expenditures are funded by ratepayers. My question is relevant to the questions I've asked these two gentlemen. Does PREPA do any community involvement type activities?
Sí, buenos días. Sí, buenos días. Sí, la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica sí ofrece servicios a la comunidad mediante su oficina de prensa. Un ejemplo es, la autoridad ofrece charlas educativas sobre sus centrales hidroeléctricas a grupos de escuelas, de universidades, asociaciones técnicas y otro tipo de asociaciones en la isla que nos solicitan estas charlas educativas. Proveemos charlas educativas también sobre la central de energía nuclear Bonus en Rincón. Además de esto, participamos activamente en las campañas a la comunidad que promueve el gobierno de Puerto Rico. Por ejemplo, esta misma semana estamos participando con el gobierno para lo que va a ser una marcha este viernes en contra del suicidio. Así que, entre otras tantísimas cosas, pues participamos con el gobierno en este tipo de actividad y en distintos foros también presentamos información del sistema eléctrico, de lo que es la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica y los servicios que ésta provee a la ciudadanía.
Thank you, Ms. Zapata. I want to remind you, if he asks a yes or no question, you answer yes or no. You don't have to elaborate. You have a very alert, able counsel in Ms. Valle, and if she thinks there's something that she needs to ask you later to elaborate, she will do that, ma'am. That is how we are trying to manage the time, and thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Question for Luma. Has Luma quantified the extent to which providing information to customers on various media platforms reduces the volume of customer calls to the call center?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Sorry.
Is there any relationship between the outreach and, I'll characterize it as advertising, just for lack of a better term right now, that you do? Is there any relation between that and any decrease in contacts with the call center based on your information being provided proactively, I'll say?
Right. Yeah, I think as it relates to the ratepayer fund outreach that we do, we certainly have been promoting the website, the Miluma app, as a way for customers to engage, get information about what's happening. They need service, things of that nature. So from that standpoint, it's had a positive impact.
Has that been quantified at all? The relationship between your advertising budget and a decrease in incentive?
No, I don't believe we have directly quantified it, but we could tell from the patterns and how many people are visiting the website and using the app that there's certainly an impact there.
Thank you. I just have one example. Can we pull up Exhibit 940, please?
Okay.
I have an objection to this document before we start. Margarita Mercado for the record.
Ma'am.
I just saw this being uploaded in the Axiom platform this morning. So the process to upload exhibits for cross was not followed, the timeline. So I have an objection on the lateness of this being included as a potential exhibit.
All right. Well, we're going to ask the question, and if you want to move to strike the answers afterwards, you can make that motion, and I'll rule on it. I don't know that this is going to be too difficult, but let's see. Thank you for reminding us of our protocol. Mr. Mazza.
2 quick questions. This is just an example of what we were talking about before. Was this placed by Luma in the newspapers?
I have an objection to the first portion. I'm sorry to interrupt. It's an assumption. It hasn't been established that this document has any relationship with any prior testimony. The foundation may be laid, but it hasn't.
Mr. Lopez, you familiar with this advertisement?
Yes.
Okay, as I understand it, its advertisement says we must invest in the future of energy in for Puerto Rico.
Yes.
Okay, you're familiar with this? Did you have anything to do with its creation?
Yes.
Okay, and do you know anything about how it was paid for?
It was paid for with the non-ratepayer funds.
With the non-ratepayer funds.
Correct.
And why was that the criteria? Why was that the decision?
Because there we're specifically kind of talking about this process and what it relates to Luma overall versus just in general the overall kind of rate revision process, rate case process, right? Because there's a distinction between there's a rate case happening and people need to be aware and know about it. And in this case, we're making the case as to why it's important to have, to go through this process and what it means for Luma specifically to be able to make improvements to the system.
Are you the person that makes these decisions about whether it's a ratepayer funded or whether it's corporate funded? Is that your job or is that somebody else's job?
It's somebody within the team, and then we'll have conversations. I'll be involved in certain conversations, but it is a separate member of the team that does that part in categorizing what falls in what buckets.
The impression you're giving me is that this is something. I don't mean to express a positive point. I'm just saying the impression you're giving me is that this is something you pay attention to.
Well,
this distinction as to who should pay for what.
Yeah, it's something that I'm aware of in terms of how we create the criteria and create the protocol so that we can be, consistent, right? Because we're trying to be very mindful about the types of things that should be ratepayer based and the types that shouldn't. And when there is, in any instance, any type of gray area, we will normally default to, let's just go to, paying for non-ratepayer funds just to be on the safe side.
Is there a written policy about this, or is it instinctive on your part? That's the first question. Is there a written policy?
We do have some guidelines that we utilize within the team just to kind of ensure that there is clarity. And then a lot of times we'll just, if there is any question, then we'll have a conversation about it.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. That's it. Yes. You can remove exhibit 940. Did Luma buy radio time in 2025?
Yes.
And were some of these radio times up to an hour in length?
I wouldn't know in terms of duration.
Are you aware of the subject of the radio times?
It could be any number of different issues.
And was this cost covered by ratepayers, or might it have been either ratepayers or non-ratepayers?
It would depend on the subject itself overall.
You cite the need for 5 new employees in the corporate communications department. What will they do?
So we have a number of different functions that they would help provide support for. The biggest overall would be the amount of different requests that we get for information, whether it's from the media, different types of stakeholders. We do have for the size of the overall utility, we do have a relatively lean team to try and kind of demands on the overall team. And then that same team is the same one that also, if there is an activation of the LEOC or a major emergency, major outage, it's the same team that goes and springs into action to get information out to customers and post information and do all that kind of stuff. One big part of it would be to assist of what we're doing in terms of requests for information from different stakeholders and channels and outlets.
And in deciding on 5 as the number of new employees,
Right.
What benefit cost analysis did you perform to
Yeah.
decide that?
Yeah. So from our standpoint, what we're kind of looking at is, how the team has evolved over time and trying to get people with, more experience, expertise. Obviously, there's a lot of, complexities, not only to doing communications in a utility, but in the environment that we find ourselves in, where obviously anything related to electric service overall tends to get a lot of attention. So for us, it's really been about ensuring that it's not just about adding bodies, but being able to add folks that have the experience, are capable to step up to the challenge, and that could be additive overall in getting information out to customers and different stakeholders.
And what would happen within your department or within the product of your department if you were not able to hire those 5 employees?
Yeah, I think for us it would be an issue of being at this point overly stretched, burnout, having keeping up with the demands of what's required in terms of the expectations that is had mostly externally for information. Obviously, we've put a lot of effort in being transparent and trying to ensure that we're kind of informing and educating every chance that we get. So it would certainly make the job much harder than already the challenges that it brings on a day-to-day basis.
Have there been any actual deficiencies noted with the current level of staffing?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we think we included in a testimony, right, in terms of the size of our team. With some of the recent moves, we're around 15 or so people, and we know that in other utilities, the social media team alone is 15 people, and we have 15 people for the entire corporate communications department. Certainly a good resource, strong resource. We have some great people that work for the company, dedicated employees, but we certainly need to bolster what we're doing, because it becomes a point of how much more can we amplify and can we do. So we do have limitations as to how much the current team can actually accomplish, because we're stretched pretty thin at the moment.
You stated that Luma will need to increase its communication capabilities to reflect more significant projects in the future. Have you identified these projects?
Yes. Yeah. Right now, there's a great number of projects that relate to transformers arriving on the island, a lot of breaker replacements, things that are significant projects that help stabilize the system. And there is obviously a lot of work that we're starting to plan for, to ensure that we are telling customers about these improvements and helping understand what does it mean for them, because otherwise it's just it's a breaker, a transformer. What does that actually mean? So there's a lot of work being done to ensure that customers know the significance of these improvements and what it means, particularly as it relates to stabilizing the grid overall. So that is something that when we have an opportunity to talk to people and inform people, they appreciate the information. So we want to ensure that we're continuing to do that.
Have you identified a specific budgetary amount relating to that?
Yeah, I mean, it is part of the what we've baked into the cost as part of our budgets for this year and the next few years.
And in your testimony, you noted that Luma needs to hire 2 media relationship managers. How did you determine the need for 2 media relationship managers?
Yeah. So we have the way we were structured previously when I arrived in March is that we had one director with several specialists supporting the work, and after a number of different projects and different things that we had a chance to evaluate the makeup of the team. We really needed, some folks that, one, it creates a kind of pathway for growth for people who have already been developing, but that could provide, more leadership so that it helps take some of the load off of some of these directors, and we can get kind of managers that can lead some of this important work that needs to be accomplished on a day-to-day basis. So we looked at the overall structure and looked at what creates the best balance for us to bolster what we're trying to do in the most financially responsible way.
You indicated that one of their responsibilities would be to mitigate LUMA's reputational risks.
Mm-hmm.
Can you clarify how that? Well, I'm assuming that that would be ratepayer funded. Can you clarify the relationship of that to a ratepayer benefit?
Yeah, I think, overall there is the situation of like the skepticism that potentially exists with customers and some of the negative narratives that have existed over the years. So it is important for people to have, trust in the utility, trust in the service, trust in the improvements. So a big part of that is ensuring that trust is being built, right? Which is very different from a kind of corporate reputation. We're a good corporate citizen. We're doing the things. It's really in the basis of ensuring that people understand that LUMA is committed to Puerto Rico and is committed to moving things forward as it relates to the energy transformation.
Thanks, Mr. Lopez. I actually wanted to ask you about that very question. You just referred to skepticism. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you have any information about what is the level of reputational skepticism about LUMA in Puerto Rico? Do you have any information, objective information about that? Or just a sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's overall in the line of questioning that we receive, what we hear from people on the streets, what we see in the media and news reports. I mean, it certainly gives us an indication, right, that people sometimes are hearing information from different sources. So it behooves us to be proactive. I mean, one of the things that we've heard time and time again as I was going through the process to join LUMA was that we had a problem with communications, and I would have to say that in my almost or about 10 months here, one of the things that we've heard often is that communication is getting better, and that we're doing a better job of just showing up, communicating, telling our story.
So here's where I'm headed with this. Again, I'm just going to give you my thoughts out loud, and you can react to them. What matters to the Energy Bureau is the reasonableness of the cost that you're seeking a recovery of. And I'll just pose a hypothetical. The more skepticism, the less trust that people have in a company, the more likely that when you try to put out a positive message, they're going to look at that as negative too, and just in an effort to manipulate them into liking somebody of whom they're skeptical. You follow what I'm saying?
Sure.
In which case the dollars aren't going to be very well spent because they're not going to work. They're just going to make things worse. Mm-hmm. Now, I just pose that as a hypothetical, but that's what I'm wondering. Do you have any information about because, I ride in a car over here every morning, and I ride home, and guess what I ask them, right? And so what I get is servicio mal, precios alto, and I get the same thing every day. Right. And of course, I can pick up a newspaper, and somebody who's going to be reelected or seeking reelection is saying something. And so I guess what I'm asking you is, do you really know whether the money that you're spending to improve communications that really can be argued are necessary, whether they're really going to make a difference because people lack trust so much, there's just not a good expenditure. You follow what I'm saying? And sure. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, we see it in the voice of the customer information, the JD Power information that we look at, right? We see, how customers are responding. I mean, in my experience of doing this in a really long time, it's always best to communicate than to not communicate, right? Because every day there's something occurring that has an impact on the overall environment as it relates to this topic. I can say again that in my a short time with the company, I have seen a visible receptiveness from people, because we are communicating more, and we are more visible out there. So I do think it has helped. I agree that there is certainly frustration from customers, giving some of what they obviously have experienced, but a lot of that times it's also based on a lot of the noise that's out there. So it's in our best interest overall, in terms of the investment that's being made in the overall energy transformation, that we are communicating with folks more rather than less.
You state that you want to hire experienced employees to deal with what you characterize as the complexities of Puerto Rico. Have you determined the additional cost this will add for those employees?
Yes, and we have weaved into the budget that we presented.
It's been woven into the budget. Is it identified as a discrete amount?
No, I think we put it together as part of the overall costs.
And have the existing capabilities of staff been inadequate?
I think it's a matter of an evolution. We've had some great folks that have been on board and have helped us a great deal to the moment, but we certainly need more experienced individuals that have obviously a little bit better handle on some of these complexities in order to help us continue to grow and go in the right direction in terms of wanting to communicate more.
There's some very significant issues out there. For example, AMI, vegetation clearing, emergency response efforts. Is your team currently capable of handling those, or are the new employees needed for these type campaigns?
Yeah. We certainly have the folks on staff to be able to do the job. The question then becomes, in order to do it in the best way possible, in a bigger way, potentially reaching more people more often, that's where the additional folks come in handy, because we do have, it's this fine line between are we able to do the job on a daily basis? We could certainly get by with what we have. Is it operating the way it should, in the most effective way to help us be as effective overall as we need to? We're not quite there yet.
Would the additional resources be only needed during emergency events, or?
No, it would be a mixture of the emergency and the day-to-day operations.
And how would they be? How would the resources be deployed other than emergencies, in other than emergency times?
Right. So it goes back to the kind of what I said earlier, right? So some of that will be on the media relations front. Some of that will be on the internal communications front as well. So it really is a mix of different functions that will help the overall team, corporate communications team, provide its overall kind of day-to-day function.
All right. Going to one of your ROI responses, it indicates that you expect the scope of external consultants to decrease starting in fiscal year 2027. Is that correct?
Yes.
But the budget doesn't reflect that, does it?
Right.
Could you explain that, please?
Yeah, because it part of it is because it is not growing at the same level that it has in the past. So we do anticipate that there'll be certain costs year to year that we have to take into account But the overall goal is to continue to grow the team and the function. They'll always, at least in my experience, it's always good to have some level of consultancy that you have at your disposal, just because particularly the communications in much and so rapidly in such a short time that you do gain obviously some advantages of having that kind of external point of view, external support on different things, thinking, and there's certainly an inherent benefit to that, but the goal is to kind of continue to bolster, the team internally, which is why we focused on some of these higher level roles rather than necessarily just kind of specialist and below roles.
So from that, I gather you did not anticipate the internal team ever having the full capability of performing these functions without the assistance of external.
I think it'll depend on what the role is. As the team becomes more capable, we could potentially have a role of a consultant that is helps just provide more of perspective and feedback and counsel versus helping perform some of the functions, which is part of what relates to the cost that we have now, that we incur now as part of having an agency on board to support us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Baez. You stated in your testimony that the constrained budget maintains only the core communication functions necessary to fulfill basic operational and regulatory needs. What are the necessary core communication functions?
Yes, basically the core communication services that my area provides are corporate communications, community relations, and government affairs. Those are the three basic pillars, and stakeholders relations as well.
I'm sorry, could you repeat those three?
Yeah. Corporate communications, community relations, and government relations and stakeholder relations as well. In the case of community, if I can explain, we basically go to the communities we operate and keep them educating them and informed about our federally funded projects. As to give you an example, the batteries and the pickers project, we're engaging the communities when they see construction in the area on what are we doing and what are the benefits for not only the community, but for the whole population as well. As we do with corporate communications, this is part of our function. When we made some progress, to give you an example, when we had 1,200 megawatts in repairs that avoided the load shedding during the peak season, this was part of our mission, just to communicate the good things that we are doing on behalf of the people of Puerto Rico, and how are we developing our operations and projects as well. So it's a mixture of what we're doing in the field, in operations levels and project levels, and how do we communicate to the people of Puerto Rico. Most of it is to give them also accountability for the company on what are we doing and how are we improving.
Thank you. And are the basic operational and regulatory needs currently being fulfilled? That can be a yes or a no.
Regulatory, can you repeat that question again?
Are the basic operational and regulatory needs currently being fulfilled with your current level of resources?
Actually, yes.
Thank you. You testified regarding Geneta's corporate social responsibility efforts. Have you identified the cost to ratepayers of that activity?
Yes, basically the budget that we have for community, and mostly for those events that we do engagement in the community, as of now in the community meetings and the corporate social responsibility projects, is around $50,000 for the community meetings up until now, and a total budget is around $550,000. For the corporate social responsibility projects that we focus is also helping the community with activities like installing fire alarms with the Red Cross. Also, we have a very interesting program called Genera Academy, in which we go to schools and educate students about the things we do in order to improve the system. We also have alliances with college universities as well, like University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez, like Universidad Politécnica, like Universidad Ana Geméndez. And this is an alliance that we get in order to bring students, engineering students, and the technical institutes as well, in which we bring them to have practices in our operations. And many of them are staying with us in order to bring the next generation of Genera employees. So also there's benefits for our employees as well in order to study on those institutions if they want to do continuous education.
Thank you. You testified that Genera's proposed budget is necessary to support performance consistent with Act 57-2014 and the LGA OMA. Act 57-2014 and the LGA OMA set forth minimum requirements with which Genera must comply. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the extent to which they are fulfilled is determined by Genera. Is that correct?
Yeah, and of course we have to present metrics to P3 on what are we doing, including an annual report.
Okay, thank you. I have some questions for PREPA. Can you explain why PREPA requires why PREPA Why does PREPA require EDR solutions for communications, media monitoring services, news analysis, media and social media management, and public relations services in fiscal year 2026?
Sí, este contrato es parte de los recursos que utiliza la Oficina de Prensa de la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica para cumplir con las funciones requeridas a la autoridad en cuanto a compartir información pública con la ciudadanía y los consumidores. Como le expliqué anteriormente, la Oficina de Prensa tiene solamente 2 empleados y estos 2 empleados, pues por sí solos, pues no tienen todas las herramientas ni tienen, ¿verdad?, todo el tiempo que se requiere y ¿verdad?, los recursos para poder monitorear lo que son los medios de comunicación de Puerto Rico y fuera de Puerto Rico y poder reaccionar ante estos. Además de esto, nosotros en la autoridad recibimos peticiones de la prensa local y fuera de Puerto Rico también en cuanto a información relacionada a las funciones de la autoridad como corporación pública. Y además de esto, necesitamos también para cumplir con nuestras funciones como corporación pública, desarrollar muchas veces artes gráficas, banners, posters y otro material gráfico que se tenga que compartir en las redes sociales, que esta compañía pues lo suple. Nosotros, la autoridad, antes de la transición a Luma, además de la oficina de prensa, tenía una oficina de artes gráficas e imprenta. Y dentro de la misma autoridad, nosotros pues desarrollábamos el arte y todo el material que se utilizaba para orientación a la ciudadanía. Esta compañía viene entonces a suplir esa necesidad. Sí, correcto. En la autoridad solicitamos un presupuesto de $100,000. Lo que fue aprobado fue una fracción de esto por el detalle de que estamos en medio de este proceso de tarifario y de presupuesto.
So the cost to customers for fiscal year 26 through 28 is $100,000 a year incrementally over what it is for fiscal year 2025. Is that correct?
En este momento no tengo los números, no recuerdo exactamente cuáles fueron los números que incluimos. No sé si el contralor de la autoridad que está junto a mí pudiera tener acceso a los números.
We don't have that detail right now. We don't have that detail right now.
If I may, this is Mirelis Valle on behalf of PREPA. The numbers were submitted as part of the exhibits. If you have the reference, I can show the document.
All right. Thank you very much. That is it for number one.
It's at the end. I have a quick question about, for all three of you. I wonder if it's possible that all three of you are communicating to the same customers about the same things. And that, there's an outage and everybody feels the need to use their corporate communications infrastructure to communicate, because the public doesn't necessarily make a distinction between which of the three companies are responsible. And I don't know that the dollars are large, but let me just ask Mr. Lopez first. And I don't know that it would make any sense to say the three of you have to get together and coordinate your budgets and don't say anything the third time when somebody says it the first two times. But Mr. Lopez, you look like you have some kind of thought on that matter.
Yeah, I mean, according to the role that Luma plays in terms of managing the system, we're responsible for communicating. So, for example, the example of a outage, we'll communicate whether it's a generation outage or something with a transmission line. We're the ones that are kind of responsible for communicating that to the general public, and what we do is we make a distinction between the types of outages for transparency and awareness, but we essentially play the lead role in that type of communication.
That's the role that's assigned to you by the contract.
Correct.
Do you have any view on whether there's any unnecessary redundancy, or is what we have inevitable as a result of there being three separate corporations and the big dollars at your end, so don't worry too much about the other dollars? Or I'm just wondering, is this an issue, the redundancy of communications among the three people? Mr. Lopez.
I think as it relates to communication to the customer about service and overall experience, I'm not sure that there is a lot of redundancy there, because we kind of play that role more critically. So while we all are in our own way communicating essentially to the same customer, the same types of audiences, I think the messages are different. So there isn't necessarily a duplication of efforts overall. I mean, that would be my initial response.
Thank you.
Yes, just a quick question, this is Commissioner Ugarte. Mr. Lopez, you explained the difference between the communications to the ratepayers versus communication to for corporate activities.
Correct.
In your department, how much is for what? Like 50%, 60% is of all your communication is dedicated to which one? Which activities?
But the majority of the communication that we do is customer related communication. I don't have a breakdown by percentage, but it would be a smaller percentage of overall, what I would call, corporate reputation. It's a much smaller amount.
All right, moving on now to bill inserts, education, and web communication.
Procedurally, the plan is to see cross after each of the capital letter items. If that's okay with everybody, I just think it'll be more coherent to do it that way. Otherwise, there's like 17 interruptions and changes of the guard rather than 4 or 5. I forgot to mention that outset. So if you're following your agenda, we're basically on A2, but at the end of A is when we would go to cross-examination. Everybody clear? Everybody okay? All right, thank you for your patience on that, Mr. Mazza.
Mr. Lopez, you stated in your testimony that under the constrained budget, customers may be less informed. Under the constrained budget, will Luma inform customers to the same extent it does now? Or will the constrained budget exceed the current level of information?
It would be at a little bit higher level, but certainly it becomes an impact on how much can you actually achieve when you go with one budget over the other.
And is the current level of information Luma provides inadequate?
I believe so. We could certainly do more.
You stated in your testimony that the constrained budget will affect the extent to which Luma is able to perform its duties as required by the OMA. The OMA, however, sets forth basic responsibilities, and the extent to which it is appropriate to perform those duties is determined by Luma. Is that correct?
Correct.
And for Genera, the level of service you provide under the constrained budget, is that the same or less than what you've proposed under the optimal budget?
At the optimal budget, of course, it's like adding additional funds to expand the messaging, but I feel comfortable working with my constrained budget, doing my job and my team's job.
I'm sorry, you feel comfortable with
the constrained budget?
The constrained budget.
That's correct.
And would you say the constrained budget will provide an enhanced level of information over what you were able to provide in fiscal year 2025?
Yes, using actual media resources and looking always for savings, I think that we can do the job with a constrained budget.
And with respect to PREPA, I believe your constrained and optimal budget in this area are the same.
Sí, la autoridad solamente presentó un optimal budget. No presentó un constrained budget.
And is the level of information you're able to provide as proposed, does that exceed what you currently are able to provide in fiscal year 2025 with your 2025 budget?
Could you repeat the question? If you don't understand it.
Your fiscal year 26 through 28 budget is higher than 2025, is that correct? And is the level of information that's going to be commensurate with that higher budget additional to what information you're able to provide in 2025?
Básicamente, el presupuesto presentado para el 2026 es una proyección igual que el del 2027, 2028. El del 2026 es mayor que el del 2025 y realmente es el presupuesto que la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica ha estado solicitando consistentemente durante los pasados 3 años para poder cumplir con nuestras obligaciones, tanto fiduciarias, que son las que nos manda la ley, como las regulatorias y operacionales. Durante los últimos 3 años nosotros hemos estado operando pues con un presupuesto menor del necesario para poder cumplir con nuestras obligaciones.
And has that budget led to any deficiencies in your operation that you can identify?
Sí, correcto.
Just with respect to this topic.
Sí, correcto. Hay deficiencia en el presupuesto aprobado versus la proyección de gastos de la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica. Específicamente, tenemos deficiencias en cuanto a la plantilla de empleados. No tenemos suficientes empleados para operar y supervisar las operaciones de las centrales hidroeléctricas. Lo que es el área administrativa de apoyo a la parte operacional y de cumplimiento regulatorio, pues también tenemos deficiencias. Tenemos empleados haciendo funciones duales que según las leyes de Puerto Rico tendrían que estar separados en empleados distintos, pero no tenemos suficientes empleados para poder tener esa separación de funciones. Además de esto, tenemos equipos que están obsoletos y así por el estilo.
Thank you. Back to Luma. You state that if less funding than proposed in the constrained budget is approved, the chances of employee burnout are increased. What evidence is there that will occur?
I mean, we see it currently with the team now because it is the function is truly a 24/7 function. So we may be operating throughout the regular day, and then in the evening there's an outage. The team has to spring into action, and we do the best that we can to mitigate some of that with certain folks chipping in at different times. But it is certainly a real issue that we have to contend with.
You state the need for 5 new employees and generally describe their duties. In deciding on that number, what benefit cost analysis did you perform?
I mean, for us, we're looking overall at, what does it mean to have the people in house versus potentially having more agency support or having that work, potentially taken on through other means. So we do recognize the value of having the in-house, capabilities, while at the same time, again, maintaining, some level of external support that gives us, flexibility in terms of, headcount and not creating, issues with people having to come and go.
So that's more of a general explanation than a cost-benefit analysis.
Correct.
And what would happen if you don't have those employees?
I mean, again, it becomes a situation where, we're already stretched thin as it is, so it impacts our capability to do, the job at a high level.
What customer-facing web content does your department develop?
We basically develop a lot of the information that you currently see on the website related to information for services, information for different things that are happening that impact service. Obviously, things related to any potential service interruptions, things of that nature. Our team helps develop the content for the website.
Are you requesting additional funds for that activity?
The content itself is developed in-house, and the costs related to the website overall, those things already are kind of accounted for from that perspective. So, not a direct cost function from our perspective, from an increase perspective.
Are any technical and professional services contractors utilized for that purpose?
Not currently, I believe.
Mr. Baez? What information does Genera provide on its website?
Basically, it's mostly what we are doing in terms of the generation, leave information on the generation of the system, including the other private companies. It's like a transparency page in the page in the part of generation. Also, we have a part on community. We also, in which we showcase the meetings that we have in different communities and updates that we do, or the things that we do in corporate social responsibility. Also, we have a part in which we present the status of the federally funded projects, updated almost every week about the progress. And this is something that is mostly the purpose of this page. It's like a transparency portal.
Are you requesting additional funds for the website?
No, sir.
And have you considered consolidating Genera's website with Luma's website?
No.
Wouldn't consolidation potentially increase customer information and decrease costs?
No, because basically, in the case of Genera, we are a generation company, and based on our core strategies and our principles, we want to communicate what we do in terms of the generation. Remember, we are part of 60% of the generation of the island, and it's like asking also Ecoelectrica or AES to do the same. We are divided corporations. I don't think it's a significant cost for the people of Puerto Rico, considering the way we manage this page.
Okay. I have some questions for PREPA.
En la página web de la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica, nosotros presentamos la actualización de las operaciones actuales de la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica. Nosotros no incluimos ninguna parte de la información de Luma y Genera. Lo que nosotros tenemos en nuestra página web es un enlace que dirige al consumidor a la página de Luma o a la página de Genera para que ellos obtengan la información de los sistemas de generación, transmisión y distribución de parte de los dos operadores privados. Además de esto, la autoridad incluye en su página web reglamentos, manuales, documentos de acceso al consumidor para el conocimiento de las reglas que aplican al sistema eléctrico y a la autoridad en Puerto Rico. También incluimos información sobre las reuniones de la Junta de Gobierno y aparecen datos y documentos sobre las reuniones públicas de la Junta de Gobierno de Puerto Rico, así como comunicados de prensa que de tiempo en tiempo se publican en cuanto a las operaciones de la autoridad y el cumplimiento de la autoridad con las leyes y reglamentos de Puerto Rico. Y también se incluyen copias de los estados financieros auditados de la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica.
Is PREPA statutorily required to maintain a website?
La Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica está requerida por ley de tener un oficial de prensa y de mantener un medio de comunicación a la ciudadanía de manera continua. Y ante la realidad tecnológica del mundo de hoy, la manera más económica de hacer eso es mediante una página web.
And has PREPA considered consolidating its webpage functionality with Luma's webpage?
No. Si desea que explique, realmente como las funciones de Luma y Genera están completamente segregadas de las funciones de PREPA, hay una clara definición y diferenciación entre entre lo que nosotros publicamos y lo que publican los dos operadores privados en sus respectivas páginas. Por lo tanto, no hay necesidad de unir las páginas porque no hay duplicidad en la información que compartimos.
Thank you. If I asked you this previously, forgive me. Could you explain the function of the contract vendor PREPA webpage maintenance service?
La página web de la autoridad se trabaja internamente con el equipo de trabajo de informática corporativa. El contratista que tiene la autoridad entra en la medida en que se haga necesario desarrollar algún arte gráfico como parte de algún comunicado de prensa o alguna visualización que se quiera incluir en la página web, se le asigna al contratista, la provee al personal de informática corporativa de la autoridad y entonces el personal de la autoridad es quien le hace el upload, lo sube en la página.
And can you provide the cost of that current service?
En este momento no.
Thank you. Yes. We're now moving to strategic affairs. Just give me a second to get to the next area.
Mr. Bias, my understanding is Janetta has some kind of strategic affairs function. Is that correct? Do you know? Strategic affairs?
Corporate affairs, which is divided in government affairs and public affairs as well.
Government affairs and public affairs?
Yep.
And what does that effort involve?
Mostly in the government affairs arena is to educate elected officials, not only here, but at federal level on the progress that we are making in our operations, keep them updated. Also go and testify at the House or the Senate in public hearings. Also meet and try to give our point of view on proposed regulation or legislation as well. This is mostly what we're doing in the government affairs arena.
Do you separate out that expense associated with those particular activities, or are they rolled into more general categories? Expense?
No, basically it's part of the department expense.
It's part of what, sir?
The department expense.
The corporate affairs department?
Yes, that's correct.
Not separated out?
No.
Okay. Is Mr. The CFO, Loomis CFO Smith here? Was he here? Yeah. Do you mind coming up here, sir? You want to go to him next? Yeah. I'll remind you what I said about yes, no questions, Mr. Smith? Yes, sir. Okay. Welcome back, sir. You're sworn. When you're ready. Right, let me know when you're ready. Mr. Smith, welcome back.
Thank you.
All right, we were just talking about something strategic affairs. I gather from your testimony that in the finance area, you have two vice presidents for what I think you described as ongoing strategic guidance. Is that right?
No, sir. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Doesn't ring a bell. Okay. Do you have your testimony with you by any chance?
I do.
Okay. Can you, let's hope we have the same version. Can you go to page 69? You're ahead of me, sir. Well, maybe I can shortcut it. You don't have two vice presidents for ongoing strategic guidance, you say?
No, sir. What might help clarify, I have a vice president and chief accounting officer who handles the accounting function. I have a vice president of financial planning and analysis who handles all the budgeting, reporting, and various analytical work in the finance department, also supports the business units, and then I have a vice president who leads the federal funds office.
Okay. This business about, like Mr. Bias was just talking about, preparing people to go testify before the legislature, that kind of strategic guidance for the company. Is that within your domain?
No, sir.
Okay, so I apologize. Do you know anything about a business partners department? Is that within your domain?
Yes, sir. It's in my department.
And that involves, you're asking for, you're forming one with 6 additional employees, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's your area. And what's the necessity of this?
So the finance business partners, make a little context. Going back a year ago, there was really no finance function embedded out in the organization. So in capital or in operations or in ITOT or elsewhere, that resulted in, I would argue, a gap, for lack of a better word, in translation of financial results and performance, project management, and things of those nature throughout the company. We created a finance business partner function where we now have people in my organization who are embedded with Mr. Melendez in capital, for example, Mr. Burgermeister in operations, for example, that help manage the budgets, monthly financial reporting, estimate to actual comparison for projects, for work that's being undertaken, and things of that nature. So it gives us a much better visibility into the financial performance of the company.
6 individuals embedded in different departments, all of whom gather information, coordinate it, compile it, collate it, and bring it to you.
That's correct. And not just to me, it's across the executive leadership of the organization. It also supports the extensive reporting that we do to the PREB, the P3A, and elsewhere.
And what was the deficiency beforehand in terms of the result that you're now saying you're going to get?
Really, the growth in that area is driven by the growth in the business that's being proposed in the new budgets. All right, so if we increase the NFC, for example, from $183 million this year to just north of $600 million under a new budget, whatever gets approved, the volume of activity that will go with that, the volume of the number of projects that will go with that, potentially the complexity of that will grow significantly. And that will require additional support from those business partners. So it's really growing that function to align with the growth across the organization. To the extent that the organization does not grow, the growth in the business partner function would be less necessary.
Oh, so if the Energy Bureau, I'm not saying they would do this, if the Energy Bureau says you're not getting the full rate increase that you asked for, you would not necessarily need the full set of the 6 employees, if I understand what you just said.
That's correct.
Okay, well, that's clear enough. And but if you grow and you don't have those 6 employees, there's a negative consequence.
The consequence is really an increased risk from the standpoint that controlling the financial performance of the company is obviously, as a CFO, is a critical function from my perspective. It would potentially take us a couple of days longer to close the books, maybe a week longer to close the books, to track project results and things like that. And so, to the extent that you get less relevant information more slowly, that impairs the ability to course correct. So I really think about it as a risk management perspective when I think about the function.
Right. So when we talk about record keeping in the panel next week, I'm inferring that there's some interaction between this growth in the 6 employees and the ability to carry out various record keeping and functions that we might be discussing next week. Is there a connection there?
There is. For example,
I got it. That's all I need for now. That's just exactly what I need for now. 1 second, please. Ready now? Thank you.
And my question now is for PREPA. Is providing strategic direction a discrete function in the office of the governing board, or is it pursued on an ongoing basis?
¿Podría repetir la pregunta?
Is providing strategic direction a discrete function of the office of the governing board? Or is it pursued on an on-needed basis, on an as-needed basis?
La visión estratégica de la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica es una de las funciones principales de la Junta de Gobierno de la autoridad y es una función continua porque es un deber fiduciario de la Junta de Gobierno. La gerencia de la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica entonces es responsable de dirigir la autoridad, dirigir la corporación siguiendo, ¿verdad?, esa visión estratégica de la autoridad. Sin embargo, esa visión estratégica tiene que estar alineada con lo que es la política pública energética de Puerto Rico, tiene que estar alineada con la ley habilitadora de la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica y todas las leyes que inciden en las operaciones de la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica. En el caso de la gerencia de la autoridad, nosotros tenemos la responsabilidad de preparar planes estratégicos para el cumplimiento de metas que sean acordes a esa política pública energética y presentarlo ante la Junta de Gobierno, ya que la Junta de Gobierno pues, es un ente rector y no realiza funciones administrativas en la autoridad ni realiza las tareas de desarrollar planes. Esa función es de la gerencia de la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica. Nosotros preparamos los planes y se le presentan a la Junta de Gobierno para su revisión y aprobación.
So is it correct to surmise that the costs of the governing board would be the costs of the strategic affairs, or is that more specifically determined?
La Junta de Gobierno tiene una función principalmente fiscalizadora y de dirección estratégica de la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica desde un alto nivel. La ejecución de los planes estratégicos de la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica y todo lo que conlleva ese cumplimiento es función y responsabilidad de la gerencia de la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica.
And that is among their duties. That could be a yes or no. It's not all they do, obviously. It's among the duties that they have. Is that correct?
Sí, es correcto, parte de sus deberes. Ellos también, según los bylaws de la empresa, pues entran a aprobar ciertas transacciones de la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica dependiendo del costo y de la envergadura de esas transacciones.
Thank you.
I want to take a chance to clarify a previous question regarding the webpage costs. We posed $10,000 for that cost or service. Of course, the approval was less than half of that, but I want to clarify that. I want to clarify as well that earlier in the meeting, you asked about the cost of FY20 projected cost for FY27, FY28 budgets. Those are basically the same budgets for this fiscal year 26, but with an inflation percentage added. So we expect the same costs for those next fiscal years. Thank you.
Colleagues, let me take a moment and talk about logistics with you. I've got 1236. We were going to go to the next subtopic 4, compliance with statutory and regulatory requirements. I see that the bulk of those questions are from Mr. Figueroa, who is not here. So I'd like to suggest, I want to ask that we take the cross-examination on what's happened this morning now and then take our lunch break, or let me just ask, can we just get some data? What kind of cross-examination do we have on what's happened this morning so far? Let's see, show of hands, please. Mr. Glassman, welcome back, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hempling. Isaac Glassman from White and Case for the record. I have some questions for Mr. Smith on staffing. It's not necessarily limited to the scope of the questioning that you just did, sir. I'm happy to do it now. I'm happy to do it in any further section if you think it makes more sense there.
Is the bulk of the questions not related to just communications, but his whole department?
Yes.
Okay, probably it makes more sense to do it later then, if that's okay with you.
Perfectly fine.
Are there any questions? Are there any cross-examination questions about the subjects that we've addressed this morning? Mr. Brady, please.
Just a few follow-ups.
All right, well, why don't we do that? And why don't we see if we can do the redirect on that now? I don't know how much redirect really is going to be necessary, but let's do that if people don't mind, and then we'll take our lunch break.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I just was thinking for a second. I don't want to forget to say this, so pardon me for a moment. Because of the effort to consolidate our own questions, the organization has changed relative to what is on the agenda. I want to give people a sense of what that is. It's not a radical change, but I don't want people to think we've lost discipline here. We just have changed some things. So let me do that before lunch, but let's go to Mr. Brady first. Thank you, Mr. Brady, for always being ready.
Thank you. For the record, Corey Brady, Weil Gotchel and Manges, speaking on behalf of the bondholder interveners. A few questions for Mr. Lopez. Earlier today, you mentioned that you have a relatively lean team. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you said also that you have folks on hand to do the job, and you can certainly get by with what you have, right?
Under what's required for the OMA, yes.
Okay, so that was what I was going to ask. So you're not currently failing to meet your responsibilities in terms of your department, right?
But we certainly have a hard time keeping up with the consistency, but we are meeting the requirements, yes.
And you're not in breach of the OMA in terms of your department, right?
No.
So even though you have a lean team, you're still complying with the requirements that you need to?
Yes.
You also mentioned a few times, kind of at a general level, that a lot has been talked about in terms of the energy transformation and that negative narratives have existed over the years. Can you be a little more specific what you're alluding to there in terms of those negative narratives or the energy transformation?
Yeah, I mean,
oh, can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. Do you need me to go back? Okay, sure. Yes. So a couple times this morning, you said things to the effect that a lot has been talked about in terms of the energy transformation negatively, or that negative narratives have existed over the years. And I was just hoping you could give a little more specifics around what you were alluding to when you said those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really a wide, range of topics that go to, LUMA's capabilities in terms of expertise that we bring to the fold, the involvement of, local talent that is helping, maintain the system and help make improvements to the system. But it runs a pretty wide range of topics.
Okay, so a range of topics, but generally these are things that LUMA views as negative press against it, essentially.
I would say to a certain extent, yes, but it also impacts how customers feel about LUMA in general and their trust overall in LUMA as a service provider, right? So a big part of it is a lot has happened over the years to get us to the point where we are today. So certainly there is a lot that's said in the media, other channels, other forums, and it creates certainly a need to communicate beyond obviously what is required within the OMA to communicate with customers.
Okay, so in response to these negative narratives, you're basically putting forth a counter narrative or a response.
In some instances, yes. In other instances, we're just kind of understanding the landscape, understanding what type of information our customers want and need, and making sure that we're delivering kind of relevant content that helps them either understand how they interact with the service, how their service will be impacted, or how their customer experience overall could be better.
Okay, and in response to a question from one of the commissioners, you said, I believe, that the majority of these communication efforts are ratepayer funded, right?
Correct.
So many of these kind of counter narratives that your department is putting out are being paid for by ratepayers, right?
Correct.
Are you familiar with a film documentary that Luma produced called, forgive my pronunciation, A la Luz de la Verdad?
Yes, and the pronunciation was pretty good.
Okay, thank you. How was that funded?
That was funded with non-ratepayer funds.
Okay. And you spoke about a process where you decide how to fund things.
Correct.
What was the process there for that?
So we certainly we have a separate agency that is paid with non-ratepayer funds. They worked with a director on kind of what would be the content, what would be part of the documentary. So from our standpoint, it was more of understanding what they wanted to capture, what the storyline was going to be, and more of that type of thing. But it was essentially done pretty much with non-ratepayer funds.
And do you know from the outset of a project where it's going to be funded, or do you do it first and then figure out how you're going to fund it?
No, as we go beforehand, we have an understanding of what falls under what bucket. Yep.
Okay, and then do you recall Mr. Mazza asked you about whether the current level of information that Luma provides is inadequate? And I think you said effectively that you can do more with more money, right?
Correct.
So, I mean, that's kind of a truism. So I guess what I'm wondering is, even though anyone could always do more with more money, is what you're doing now inadequate? Which I think was his question.
I object to the first portion, argumentative, the truism part.
Overruled. Answer the question, please.
I mean, I think it's the term inadequate, right? Could it be better? Absolutely. Are we doing what we need to based on what is required on the OMA? We are meeting that requirement, but the amount of requests that we get for either information, participation in media interviews, meetings with stakeholders, all those type of things. That's where it gets challenging overall, right? Because we just don't have the overall staff to meet it all consistently.
Okay, but if the yardstick is the OMA, then you're not inadequate relative to that, right?
Correct.
And then I had a few questions for Ms. Zapata. Do you recall earlier, Mr. Mazza asked you a similar question about whether having a lower budget had led to deficiencies in communications?
Sí.
And you gave an answer that talked about the roster of employees that PREPA has being too low to operate hydroelectric plants. Do you recall that?
Sí.
So were you answering a question about the level of the overall PREPA budget as opposed to the communications department budget?
Correcto. La respuesta pues cubre todas las áreas de la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica, dado que todas están bajo la misma restricción de presupuesto. Para el caso del área de comunicaciones, que es la oficina.
That's good enough. You answered his question. Next question, please.
Okay, so can I try Mr. Mazza's question again, just zeroed in on the communications department? Is that particular budget deficient as opposed to the people running the hydro plants?
Sí, sí, correcto. En el caso de las comunicaciones, la oficina de prensa de la autoridad, que tiene 2 empleados, nosotros podemos trabajar con esos 2 empleados. Sin embargo, esos 2 empleados necesitan una herramienta principal que es un contrato, que es el contrato con EDR, Communications. En ese caso, nosotros solicitamos un presupuesto para ese contrato, que es un contrato de servicios profesionales que incluye diferentes funciones de apoyo a lo que son las comunicaciones, y pues lo aprobado hasta el momento pues es menor cantidad, así que necesitaríamos que el presupuesto aprobado pues fuera completo para entonces poder, con esos 2 empleados, poder cumplir las obligaciones de la oficina de prensa.
Thank you. I want to go back to some examples that you gave of what the communications department does. You mentioned a nuclear plant in Rincon. Do you recall that?
Sí.
Is that what's known as the bonus plant?
Correcto.
And that was basically an experimental facility that's been out of operation since the 1960s, right?
Sí. Esa planta está regulada por el Departamento de Energía Federal. Es responsabilidad de la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica
Do you know the level of ratepayer funded cost that's associated with what you mentioned with respect to the bonus plant?
Sí, correcto. En el caso de la solicitud de la autoridad para el mantenimiento y mantener al día esa central generatriz, estamos hablando de cerca de $400,000 la solicitud. Fueron aprobados cerca de $300,000.
Is that per year, that amount?
Correcto.
And then you also mentioned communication department's participation in certain public campaigns that were promoted by the government. Do you recall that?
Sí.
Do you know the level of ratepayer funded cost associated with those campaigns?
La gestión de ese tipo de campaña la realizan los mismos 2 empleados de la Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica con su salario. No hay un costo adicional, a menos que haya que requerir algún servicio de la compañía privada de EDR Communication en cuanto a desarrollar algún tipo de póster, banner asociado a ese tipo de campaña, que no es siempre, no es algo que sea requerido todo el tiempo, y la campaña se corre con esos 2 mismos empleados.
Thank you. So some portion of the salary cost for those employees would be associated with those kinds of campaigns.
Sí, correcto. Por eso es que la ley en Puerto Rico exige que todas las entidades gubernamentales tengan un oficial de prensa para realmente poder responder a lo que son las campañas educativas del gobierno de Puerto Rico, entre otras cosas.
And then there could also be an incremental cost associated with printing flyers or banners or things of that nature for these government promoted campaigns.
Pudieran ocurrir, pero con la tecnología hoy día generalmente se limita a crear algún póster o algún banner y el resto se utilizan los medios
Okay,
digitales.
he's just asking if there could be an incremental cost associated with that, and I think your answer is yes. Is that correct?
Pudiera ocurrir, pero no significativo.
Okay,
Entiendo que no es ni significativo.
all right. He'll decide what he wants to follow up on. Next question, please.
So given that you've said you think the budget for the communications department is insufficient, have you considered scaling back or eliminating the spending on these government promoted campaigns and using that money elsewhere in the budget?
La autoridad no tiene esa potestad. Nosotros tenemos que cumplir con las leyes de Puerto Rico y las leyes de Puerto Rico requieren tener un oficial de prensa para poder comunicar a la ciudadanía y a los consumidores. O sea, no es opcional. Nosotros tenemos que tener una oficina de prensa, tenemos que invertir en un gasto para mantener a la ciudadanía informada. Nosotros sí, pues nos ocupamos de que ese gasto sea mínimo.
Okay, that's the answer.
Does the central government have its own press officers and communications departments?
Sí.
You're saying the central government can also impress PREPA to basically do PR for it, and PREPA has no option but to comply?
Hold on.
Como le he dicho anteriormente, la ley en Puerto Rico es clara. Cada entidad gubernamental de manera individual tiene que tener su propia oficina de prensa u oficial de prensa.
Yeah, I think we may be talking past each other, so I'll try to make it more specific. I understand you're saying that there's a press office or press officer, but you specifically raised an example of PREPA spending ratepayer funds to participate in a march against suicide. Not to diminish the importance of that topic, but it's not really related to electricity, and it sounds like the central government asked you to do that. I'm wondering why that would go into your budget that you say is too low as opposed to being covered by the central government.
Did you consider yourself having no choice but to do that because of a requirement from the central government with respect to that particular march?
Correcto.
Okay. In other words, you felt you had no discretion but to use your employee time to assist in that march. You had no discretion. Is that what you're saying?
Correcto. Todas las
Okay,
entidades
that's what he's asking. Go. He can follow up if he wishes.
You're aware that PREPA is in bankruptcy and the Commonwealth government is not, right?
Correcto.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is Commissioner
1
Ramos.
second.
Señora Zapata. Ingeniero Zapata. Saludos, comisionado Ramos por acá.
Saludos.
Usted ha dicho en varias ocasiones que todas las entidades públicas en el gobierno tienen que tener oficial de prensa, etcétera. ¿Eso surge de la ley habilitadora de la autoridad?
Objeción a la pregunta, llama para una opinión legal, ella puede contestar en la medida que conozca.
Bueno, que yo tenga conocimiento, no.
Next question, sir.
Entonces, ¿cuál es el requerimiento de que todas las entidades públicas tienen que tener ese oficial de prensa?
Yo no sé Yo no desconozco exactamente cuál ley es. Sé que hay una ley del gobierno de Puerto Rico, hay una ley aprobada en Puerto Rico a eso, ¿verdad? A esos efectos.
Okay.
Okay. Y Luma y Genera actúan como agentes de prepa. ¿No cree que el hecho de que Luma y Genera están actuando ¿verdad? A favor de prepa reemplazaría ese requerimiento?
No, porque la autoridad mantiene, la responsabilidad fiduciaria sobre realmente, ¿verdad? Todos sus activos. La autoridad mantiene una operación que no realiza ni Luma ni Genera, que es con las hidroeléctricas, con el sistema hidroeléctrico de Puerto Rico. Además, nosotros mantenemos una responsabilidad regulatoria tanto ante este negociado de energía como la legislatura y las distintas entidades gubernamentales federales. Por lo tanto, nosotros tenemos funciones que no han sido delegadas ni a Luma ni a Genera, que forman parte de la información que la autoridad tiene como corporación pública que compartir con la ciudadanía y los consumidores.
Gracias.
Thank you. Ms. Mercado, give me an estimate of your redirect, please.
Just a couple of minutes. I just have two
Yeah, I
questions.
didn't think there was much to rehabilitate here, and that's the job. All she's going to do, Mr. Lopez, is rehabilitate you on the premise that you need rehabilitating. Don't repeat yourself. Right, Ms. Mercado, thank you.
Margarita Mercado Chegaray for the record. Mr. Lopez, I want to clarify concepts or words that have been used this morning in questioning, and I think these words are found in the agenda. Mr. Massa referenced advertising, and I think the agenda also mentions marketing. And I wanted to better understand if the budget that Luma has, the optimal and the constrained budget in your supporting your testimony, include costs for advertising or marketing.
They do include costs for advertising related to those campaigns, initiatives that the PREB has required or that are part of, in some form the OMA. So, for example, we'll have the program that we do related to safety with down wires. We'll have a campaign on that we may do some advertising for. Those type of things are an example of when we would use advertising as part of the current budget that we submitted.
So is that advertising that you just described related to services to transmission and distribution customers?
Correct.
Yeah. Could you explain to what extent, just generally?
Right. So that's a perfect example of like a safety initiative, right? That could impact customers not to touch down wires, to report it so that we can kind of come in, take care of the situation. So.
Thank you. You were also inquired by Mr. Massa about your staffing, the proposed staffing in the optimal budget, and about the 5 additional staff members that you're proposing to add to your team. And you said that currently you could do the job, but that's not the best way to reaching more people more often. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Sure. I wanted to make the distinction between what is required under the OMA of communicating with customers. We are certainly, able to do that job. It is a matter of how much can we sustain and at what rate we can sustain with the limited staff that we have.
Are there any benefits to customers if you're able to communicate with more people more often?
Absolutely.
Could you explain ones that come to your mind?
Sure. But, from our standpoint, it's a matter of creating potentially, more content or just amplifying more of the content that's needed to reach, customers so that they can kind of understand benefits of the work that's being done, how their service is impacted, overall customer experience with Luma. All those things are part of, what we look at.
When you say services impacted, could you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, in terms of if there's an outage in their area, people know to go to the website and they can get an estimated time of restoration of service. If there is a potentially a planned outage due to an improvement. We try to make sure that we are informing people several days in advance so they could plan accordingly and make whatever arrangements they have so it doesn't come as a surprise and disrupt their lives. It could be a matter of life or death in certain instances if there are people that have medical equipment where they're required to to have the power on to operate equipment and machinery that they need. So we take great care to ensure that we are communicating as often as we can.
Thank you. No more questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there Ms. Vasquez, redirect, ma'am?
Hi, we don't have any redirect.
Okay, Ms. Valle, redirect, ma'am?
No.
All right, thank you. All right, colleagues, let me clarify a couple of things. Should be pretty straightforward, and then we'll take our lunch. If you happen to, it's actually not a major revision to the agendas. If you happen to have your agenda with you, where we are still under item capital A, we're not doing badly in terms of time, but by the way, we will start the panel on Friday morning with the emergency response plan. So we will complete all of multi-utility between the sum of today and tomorrow, regardless of how long it takes. Right now, I am not pessimistic, but we will see how it goes. The only change is this, folks. If you happen to have your agenda and you look under item C and it says legal services, including Title III costs, Mr. Mazza has moved that up to A4, compliance with statutory and regulatory requirements. That seemed a more logical approach to things. So that's the main change, and the only changes I know so far. Will Mr. Figueroa be available this afternoon, Ms.
Yes.
Mercado?
Yes, he will.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to seeing him then.
Mr. Hempling, could you please repeat the number C, the letter C?
Yes, ma'am.
It was fully moved, right? Both the non-legal services and legal services.
No, ma'am.
No.
I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. Pardon me. All that we're doing is we are moving legal services from C2 to under A4.
Okay.
Because
you.
they relate to statutory and regulatory requirements. All right. Thank you, Ms. Valle. All right. First, I have a request. So, Mr. Brady had asked for asked for a list of the seconded employees. Can I have the party's permission to have a private conversation with Mr. Brady? I said I would rule on that. I just want to ask him what that's about and what's it for and get a feel for it so I can do the right thing. Does anybody mind if I just talk to him about it offline? He's not going to argue substance other than to tell me why it matters to him. Any objection to that? If there is, I won't do it because I don't want to start a whole trend of doing ex-party stuff. Any concerns with that one possibility?
I have a concern, and is that if we are not privy to the arguments or the reasons,
right.
it's difficult for us if we want to move to reconsider your decision.
I'm going to go with the flow, and that's just fine. So, Mr. Brady, you just get ready, and at some point, I'll find a few minutes to get in here and learn from you what that's about. Obviously, I'm concerned about. I'm not talking about relevance yet, but I'm just concerned about privacy of employees. And also the relevance question in my mind, because I have a mind of thoughts, a hunch is not a bias, is what would the list of the individuals matter as opposed to maybe their skills and the number of them. But we'll have that discussion on the record. Okay, that was one of three things I wanted to mention. The second thing I wanted to mention, this is really for council. We will have, as we've said, under housekeeping one day, a conversation about what's the date by which we are going to have, the actual proposals, the actual revenue requirement proposal, which has changed. Everybody remember that? A few nods of the head, yes?
Could you clarify?
We don't.
The final update to the revenue requirement?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So can I tell you something that's on my mind on that subject so we can think about it? So a number of people have said from time to time that they can live with. There's actually three related questions. One is this: all the changes that have occurred, we have to record. That we've known about. Number two is it has become the official statutory proposal, which becomes the default if there is not a PREB decision by day 240. In other words, there is, as a matter of statute, as I understand it, I'm not a Puerto Rico licensed lawyer, there is an official proposal which it becomes the PREB's obligation to say something about, yes, no, or yes with, or no unless. And that's keep in mind that besides all the various changes, I want to make sure that we're clear on what is the legally official proposal. And I may be the only person confused, but somehow for a while I thought it was the constrained, but then I saw it in somebody's rebuttal that it was the optimal. And I also know at different times, even today, some witnesses have said what they're proposing for a particular subject is the constrained budget rather than the optimal budget. And so I'm now concerned that as a statutory matter, I, as a person, involved in organizing the whole opinion writing process, is unsure what the legal proposal is, and as a matter of statute. And that may be something that LUMA has to consult with the two other companies to find out about. So just know when we get to that date, which is coming up, it's probably not going to be after December 15th, that we get that number. I need to know what it represents. I hope is anybody clear? Just put yourself in my shoes. That's what that's about. Lastly, I just had a thought about the whole conversations that we've been having on multiple days about, concerns about inter-affiliate contracts, which of course are legitimate. This goes back 100 years in regulation when there's a mixture of public obligations and private pursuit of profit. It goes with the territory when you have a holding company and affiliates. And I want to remind us that one institutional solution is all inter-affiliate contracts have to be cleared with the Energy Bureau before they go into effect. Yes, that adds bureaucracy. I'm not advocating it. I'm just saying that is one way to handle these concerns as opposed to after the fact arguing about them all the time. People are willing to think about that and propose solutions in their briefs, because I do envision, I'm not committing the commissioners, I do envision an April order that does two things. Number one, it sets the revenue requirement. Number two, it orders certain procedures. And that might be something to think about, pros and cons. I just bring it up today because we had yet another legitimate conversation about commissioner concerns, bondholder concerns, about the appropriateness of inter-affiliate transactions. The suspicions won't go away. The skepticism won't go away. The potential for conflict won't go away. The question is, how can we reduce controversy so that we can all work toward Puerto Rico's benefits? That's all I have on this. I appreciate everybody's. Oh, I'm sorry. So the first topic that Mr. Mazza will address after lunch is legal services. Okay, he's not going to spend all afternoon on it, but whoever is responsible for overseeing and deciding the cost of legal services, is that right?
Legal services combined with regulatory and compliance.
Okay. So I just wanted those are the people that we need at that time. And I think a hand went up. Yes, sir. Mr. Rua, how are you doing today?
Well, thank you. Javier Rua for CESA. Mr. Hamplin, you told us yesterday you might have a ruling today on Cal Data's testimony.
Well,
unopposed yesterday.
Thank you for that reminder. The honest answer is my workload caused me to forget to run that by the commissioners, which I want to do first. So I will do everything I can to make this happen today. Don't let me walk out of here this afternoon without getting you an answer.
Thank you.
Okay, my fault, and thank you. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, if I may, Margarita Mercado. Yes. We have recently occurred a situation with Mr. Branko Terzic, who, due to health reasons, cannot travel to Puerto Rico in December. He is still available to be cross-examined, given if his health remains. But then we would ask then that maybe it's the same ruling.
I'm just going to rule right now, and they can fire me later. Okay, so it's Dr. Terzic will be remote, and Mr. Dada will be remote, and while I'm on that subject, transcripts. Do I have everybody's attention? Okay, this is what I've been told about transcripts. I personally have nothing to do with this other than reporting to you about it, is that bondholders in LUMA have committed dollars to the transcript situation already. And that's why we're getting transcripts right now. As I understand it, and if I'm misspeaking, tell me. God, I got quiet in this room, didn't it? Those transcripts What we are awaiting, as I understand it, is internal decisions from Genera and PREPA. Where's Eric? Where's Eric? Okay, well, Mr. Brady, is that your understanding so far, that we are awaiting internal decisions from PREPA and Genera?
Yes, and any other parties that might contribute, but
Okay,
yes.
so the reality is nobody's getting those transcripts until those internal decisions get made. Now, my understanding, if I'm wrong, tell me, is that counsel for Genera and PREPA have passed on their recommendation to their clients to get a yes. And I assume that recommendation was accompanied by some knowledge as to what it's going to cost those individual companies. Is that correct, Ms. Vasquez?
Yes, that is correct.
And Ms. Valle, is that correct, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any authority about this, but I would like to emphasize that if a decision is going to get made, yes or no, I don't know that it takes a lot of time for that decision to get made. And the longer it waits, I'm just going to talk about my own situation. The longer it takes to get that situation, the tougher it is for my team to get to work on decision writing. And we are looking at 5 hellish months ahead of us. And they're getting more hellish the more time we have to wait. Now, what's going to happen to the other parties who aren't contributing money is none of my business. Right now, I'm just going to advocate for my own situation. Please let your clients know that your hearing examiner is very concerned about the internal situation and needs to get a grip on those transcripts. And that's the best that I can do. The PREB has no authority to make this happen. I have no authority to make it happen. But if it's going to happen, it doesn't have to take this long. And it's important for the process. And that's all I have to say on the subject, unless somebody needs to supplement it. Ms. Mercado, anything? Mr. Rua?
Just quickly, on the transcripts, there's no legal issue on appeal. These are completely admissible, even though they're by a party.
All right. Well, on the question of how the transcripts get used in terms of formality, I will make a ruling on that once I know what we have to deal with.
Gotcha.
Okay. But what I anticipate is that I've not thought about this a lot. I'm just basing on my experience at FERC and as a practitioner. So what I anticipate is that there will be these transcripts, that there will be a process at the end of the proceeding by which all parties will read the transcripts and come up with a joint, okay? Don't send me 18,000 disputes over who said what. Will come back to me with a joint approval of the transcripts as edited, and that people will focus on the big and not the small. Otherwise, we're all going to go nuts. And that I will receive that joint proposal, and that I, as the hearing examiner, will declare these to be the official transcripts. And that is what I'm saying I'm going to do, unless somebody tells me there's a better way. And I think I do have the authority to do that. If I don't, Edgardo and the internal people will tell me that the PREP has the authority, and that's the way we will do it, Mr. Rua. And that is my answer to the question, which is one more thing to build into your workload, along which I want to suggest that you start thinking about who's going to create the procedural history, which will also, I would like to be in a form of jointly approved. So those of you with the high hourly rates and the big teams need to think about what your public contribution is going to be on that, because I don't have the capacity to write a joint procedural history when I've got everything else to do. But that's another topic. I don't want to take more time from the lunch break. Everybody okay? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, just can we excuse Mr. Lopez, or do you expect that you will have questions for him in the afternoon?
Let me, you know?
I don't believe so, but let me take a quick look.
In the meantime, let's break for the lunchtime, and Mr. Mazza will communicate that privately. Thank you very much. Hold on. We'll see you back at 1:30. Thank you very much. 2:30. My lunch is downstairs.